Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. Right off the top, I want to talk about something for a sec. I am blown away by how amazing our YouTube audience has become. And I want to give you just one data point on this. I love you, YouTube. Last night, we had 164 comments on X reacting to my Trump-Kamala live reaction show. And I love all of you that watched. We had 131,000 views on Twitter. I'm looking right now as I am talking to all of you. And I'm going to go into the debate. Got a lot of different things that I want to talk about. But I went on to YouTube because Sag, who is doing a great job as our social media guy, is a big YouTube hard worker. And I think it's so fascinating. We had, a couple of data points for you. We had 610 likes on that show on Twitter. We had 8,300 likes on the YouTube version of the exact same show. It's the exact same show. We had 2,100 comments on YouTube compared to, again, 164 on Twitter/X. I'm not trying to demean our audience anywhere. I love all of you if you're watching this on Twitter, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. If you're listening to it on audio. The amount of audience and the reaction to the things that we are producing on YouTube is through the roof. We've got right at 1.7 million YouTube subscribers for OutKick. And I don't spend a lot of time in the comments anywhere on any platform, but I went into YouTube last night as I was getting ready for bed, and I'm just stunned by the quality, by the humor, by the sheer number of them. We don't have a small audience on Twitter. I've got over 1 million followers, whatever the number is on Twitter. But when you talk about 8,000 likes to 600 likes, when you talk about 2,000 comments to 150 or 60 or whatever comments, the audience and the interaction on YouTube for OutKick-related content is through the roofs. And there are other platforms where we are dominating too, but I think some of you probably are active. I'm active on Twitter more so than anywhere else. But I've known that YouTube was becoming massive because that's where my boys spend all their time. The 16-year-old, the 13-year-old, the 9-year-old, they're on YouTube all the time. I would encourage you to be aware of how big the media audience is and where the audience actually is. And YouTube has taken over. My boys, this is crazy. I'm fascinated by it because I love media. I love reading media stories, everything else. Obviously, I founded a media company. I just want to think about this for a minute. My boys love watching football. Probably not a surprise given who their dad is. But when we were down at the beach for Labor Day weekend, my 9-year-old is setting up the iPads so that we can stream as many games as possible. Laptops, all these different devices, and he's going on and he's finding where the games are streaming, and he can search for them and he can pull them up and he's got them all going. And none of the boys could figure out what stations on traditional television actually carry games. It's really important. They don't know Fox. They don't know NBC. They don't know Amazon. They don't know Hulu. They don't know NBC, CBS, FS1, ESPN. For me, I can still tell you, boom, ABC is Channel 2 in Nashville. NBC is Channel 4 in Nashville. Channel 5 in Nashville is CBS. ESPN is Channel 11 in Nashville. That has been the case for my entire life. I can tell you every one of those channels. I just did it off the top of my head. I'm 45 years old. If you're anywhere within like 10, 15 years of my age, Certainly if you're older, but I would say down to about the age of 30, you probably know your ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN affiliate. Heck, I can tell you that WTBS, channel 23 when I was growing up. Fox, channel 17. TNT, channel 35. These are all ingrained in my head like some of my friends' phone numbers are. Are you like me? Can you still remember some of your teenage friends' phone numbers? And you might not know your girlfriend's phone number now. You might not know, you might remember your parents' phone number from when you were at the house back in the day. I can still tell you what my home phone number was. I don't even have a home phone now. Anyway, my point on this is we are in such a rapidly evolving media era that traditional brands that you and I spend a lot of time with as a family and as sports fans, you knew them all. Kids today don't. They know the team that they care about, but they are completely agnostic when it comes to the method in which they consume a product, meaning a game. And they don't even think twice about the legality associated with streaming. They can find any game streaming anywhere on the internet. And the fact that they might even have, which we do, they have the ability to put it on television. They would rather find a streaming version to watch on their iPad or their iPhone or their laptop. And I just think as a media guy, as someone who loves media, we are in such a fascinating era. And everything is evolving so quickly that traditional audiences are vanishing and they're going in through new platforms. If I had a choice, I would rather own YouTube than any of the television networks out there. Think about how crazy that is. Like from a business perspective, I would rather own YouTube than CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, FS1, ESPN, TNT, TBS. I'd rather own YouTube. And I was thinking about this as the debate viewership numbers have come in. This thing was on every channel last night. So back when Biden and Trump debated on June 27th, 51.2 million people watched Biden-Trump. That sounds like a lot. There's 330 million people in America. Last night, the number that I have seen shared is that a total of 57.7 million watched the debate last night. Now, maybe that number is going to evolve. Maybe it's going to shift. It's not that many. When you consider that it was on every channel, over 100 million people watched the Super Bowl on one channel. Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, all of them had the debate on last night, and the vast majority of Americans didn't care. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to watch reactions to the debate. Hundreds of thousands of you watched my reaction to the debate right after, just on YouTube and just on Twitter. Millions of you just listened to me on the Clay and Buck show on radio stations all over the country or on the podcast. But where are all those viewers going? They've abandoned television. They're in streaming. They're not even aware that the race is going on in an aggressive way. And I just think it's so fascinating because that evolution of media is occurring so rapidly that getting big audiences outside of, frankly, the NFL and a big college football game is almost impossible. But the debate audiences compared to 2020 are down like 30%. So what lesson is that giving us? Are fewer people engaged about the election in 2024? I think the answer is yes. You might have heard me on the radio with Buck months ago. I bet him that fewer voters are going to turn out for 2024 than for 2020. I really believe it. I think Trump as boogeyman doesn't have the same resonance for the Democrat Party as it did in 2020. I said earlier, I don't think that Trump, and I said on the show, was the best version of himself in the debate. But I don't know that it's going to matter at all, because the number of people that actually consume debates, unless you come out and fall flat on your face like Joe Biden did, it's almost impossible for something in a debate to really move aggressively the outcome of an election. And if, as I'm talking to you right now, nearly $900 million has been bet on the presidential election, and Trump has a 1 percentage point lead over Kamala Harris, 50-49. Now, he dipped down a couple of points. She rose up a couple of points based on the election debate. But overall, I don't think much is going to move the needle. I think people have made up their minds. I think fewer people are going to vote in 2024 than voted in 2020. And I think Trump is going to win this election, because ultimately I think the swing voters are going to look around and say, my life was better 4 years ago than it is now. And that means that I need a change agent. And whether I like or dislike Donald Trump, I trust him to be the change agent more than I trust Kamala Harris. So, again, I encourage you to go subscribe on YouTube. Look at the way that we're sharing things on YouTube. Look at the way that it's growing. I'm on TikTok now. I don't know how to post anything on TikTok. I got an assistant who's now in charge of posting my stuff on TikTok. But we have stuff go viral every day now at OutKick, millions of views on platforms that I'm not even on. I went to the 8th grade football game recently, and my son, who's playing wide receiver 8th grade football, I was talking to a couple of the kids on his team, and they said, oh, yeah, we saw your TikTok about the competition between the best boys high school team and the best women's NBA team, like who would win. 6 million people watch that TikTok. 6 million just on TikTok. And so the point on this is, we're used to an era when it's very top down. Somebody on CNN says something, somebody on Fox News says something, somebody says something on MSNBC or ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN, whatever channel you want. And it really drives a lot of the discussion. That era's gone. Way more people are watching and listening to stuff on YouTube and TikTok that never gets carried by the media and X than ever are talking about things on television. And what's old is a bit new again. I'm always surprised by this. We got the ratings data on Clay and Buck the other day, and I'm kind of nerding out on media. But they gave us the top 51 markets, and I printed it off, and I looked at ratings. For instance, we are the most popular radio show in Milwaukee. Just Milwaukee, on our radio show, every 15 minutes, 22,000 people in the Milwaukee listening area are listening to us just in Milwaukee. Nobody really covers radio segments on a day-to-day basis. I want you to think about that for a minute. 22,000 people just in Milwaukee by itself every 15 minutes. So that means every 15 minutes it's more, but an average over a 3-hour show, 22,000 people just in Milwaukee are listening. Now, there's millions listening nationwide, but again, we just got the data. Most television shows these days struggle to get 22,000 people oftentimes on broadcast, not on broadcast, but on cable television. There are lots of days on FS1 where we would post on Lock It In 50, 60,000 viewers for our cable gambling show that was on nationwide. Every 15 minutes, we get almost that many people just in Milwaukee. I don't know how this is going to pan out in the 2024 presidential election. I think anyone who claims that they know is out to lunch. But I do think we're at such an incredibly interesting inflection point where everything is changing all at once. And in the same way, when the 2016 election happened, and a lot of people said, oh my goodness, we never saw Donald Trump winning this election, and there was such a shockwave that went through the population. I'm a media nerd, you go back in time and you think about the ways that people communicated. FDR had his fireside chats on the radio. JFK, in many ways, mastered television better than other politicians did. Reagan was an actor, incredible communicator on television. Trump has Twitter, but I think the next iteration is who's going to really do an incredible job of motivating people on TikTok or on YouTube. And I think it's going to result in outcomes that become more surprising to people who have traditionally only watched television. I just thoughts from me as I have been surveying the media environment. I just think we are at a moment in time when everything is changing simultaneously, and many of the rules that lots of us grew up with about how media was consumed are completely changing in real time. So anyway, just thoughts from me on that. Couple of other things that are out there. What's the biggest takeaway for me from the media going forward as it pertains to the debate that we saw last night? I said you can go watch my review. As I said, it's up on YouTube. It's all out there. You can go watch all last night. I'm not going to recapitulate what I said last night. But I thought it was interesting. Pay attention to what people do, not what they say. I think that's a good life lesson across the board. To me, the most interesting outcome post-debate was Kamala Harris's team said they want another debate. That surprised me. I thought, especially if they had a good result, and I think they had a good result last night, I thought that they would say, we don't want another debate. They want another debate. What they do, not just what they say. I think Kamala Harris's campaign is losing. I think they have internal polling data that shows them behind in many different states out there that are going to decide this election: Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I think they have data out there that is showing them losing, and I think that's why they want another debate. As a general rule, the group that wants more debates, again, as a general rule, tends to be the group that is losing. I think that is going on right now and in play, and we'll see what happens. The other thing I do want to address two things that I thought happened last night. ABC rigged the moderation, the likes of which we've never seen in a presidential debate ever. It can simultaneously be true that Trump was not the best version of himself, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and also that the debate itself was incredibly rigged against him. If there is going to be a second debate, I would come out right now if I were Trump and say, I'll do a second debate, but it has to be on Fox News. He's already gone on CNN. He's now gone on ABC. He's gone into two left-wing media environments. I think Fox News would play it straight. I think Brett Baer and Martha McCallum would be right down the middle. But if I'm Trump, I'm not agreeing at this point to go on any other left-wing network. To me, a moderator, if the moderator or moderators are doing the best job, should not be a topic of conversation after the game or after the event or after the debate. Referees, the best ones, are seen and not heard. They are not in any way the storyline. CNN, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash stayed out of the fray, let Trump and Biden go head-to-head, let the viewers judge it themselves. Fact-checking in any way is a definite attempt to weigh in on one side of the ledger, particularly when the fact-checking only occurs in one direction. It's like throwing flags on only one team or calling fouls on only one team. This was, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a rigged 3-on-1 debate that Trump walked into. Having said that, I'll give you two examples that I think Trump had the opportunity to get a debate knockout, and he totally whiffed. First question out of the gate was to Kamala Harris, and it was, what would you say to voters who ask, I'm paraphrasing, if they are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Kamala Harris began her answer by saying, I was raised as a middle-class kid. It was a canned answer. It had absolutely nothing to do with the current state of the country. Because here's the reality. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, male, female, north, south, east, west, it doesn't matter where you live, what your ethnic identity is, what sexual identification you are, all of us are economically worse off because of rising inflation than we were before the Kamala Biden administration began. We had 1.4% inflation in January of 2021. It went all the way to 9.1%. It's still double today what it was then. And inflation coming down doesn't eliminate the inflation that already existed. I'll give you an example. If you put on 20 pounds in 2021, and you put on 10 pounds in 2022, and you put on 5 pounds in 2023, the fact that you only put on 5 pounds in 2023 doesn't mean that you lost the 30 pounds before. In fact, you're actually 35 pounds heavier. All you've done is slow the rate of increase in your belly size. The weight that you put on has not gone away. That's why everything seems so expensive in this country today, because the weight you put on in 21, 22, 23 is still impacting you in 24. If you put on 35 pounds and you go out and you try to go for a jog, the fact that you only put on 5 more pounds in the most recent year doesn't eliminate all the weight that you put on since. I'll give you an example. When I graduated from college, I weighed 165 pounds. I was 22 years old, 6 foot. I weighed 165 pounds. I now am 45 years old, 23 years later, double the age I was when I graduated from college. I weigh 185 pounds. On average, over the past 20 years, I have put on a pound a year. Now, the reality is I probably put on some years more, some years less. I've weighed basically between 175 and 195 my whole post-law school life, okay? So I've had a 20-pound range. But every now and then I'm like, hey, when I came back from Australia, I was up, I stood on the scale, I was 193 pounds. I ate a lot while I was in Australia. I said, I got to get back in shape. I drove it back down under 185. This morning, I stood on the scale. I was 188. I got to take it back down a little bit. I'd like to be back to 175. I don't know if I can do it or not. That's what my ideal weight, I think, would be in my own mind. But I put on years of weight. Inflation is toxic like weight gain is because you don't eliminate it unless you go back and take away the weight that you put on before. That is an easy answer. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have failed. Everybody is worse off. Trump didn't call Kamala on the fact that she didn't answer it. Here's another one for you. And let me give you, today is the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. I was a first-year law student on 9/11. I was in my torts class. The current dean of Vanderbilt University Law School was my visiting professor, Chris Guthrie. I watched the Twin Towers fall in televisions that they rolled into the center of Vanderbilt Law School. 22 years old, standing there watching the Twin Towers fall. 23 years later, we are here on this anniversary. Yet last night, Kamala said, January 6th was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, among other things, have occurred since the Civil War. Crazy idea for you. I think the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor and essentially beginning World War II in terms of drawing in the United States was far worse than anything that happened on January 6th. I think watching the Twin Towers collapse and over 3,000 people die on 9/11 was far worse than anything that happened on January 6th. It was the eve of 9/11 last night. When she said that, which she has said alongside of Joe Biden for years, how in the world was Trump not prepared to reference 9/11? I'll give you one other example of what I thought was a failure from Trump. She went after the rally size. I've been saying this for years. No one cares how many people come to your rally. She knew that Trump would go down the rally size rabbit hole. It was also imminently predictable that she would attack his rallies. Why was Trump not prepared when she attacked his rallies to say, look, I know lots of people enjoy coming out to our rallies because they want to make America great again. And I look forward to doing many of them, even to the extent that I will risk my life to do them, because on July 13th, I was shot by someone who tried to kill me. I still have the shrapnel damage from my ear from a bullet that narrowly avoided blowing my head off. I was lucky that day. One of my supporters was not. He was a fire department volunteer in Pennsylvania, Corey Campitori. I want to tell you about his story here for a moment because I think his story is emblematic of the story of many people who support me across the nation and why I look forward to doing rallies to support them. But let me tell you about a little bit about Corey. It was an amazing opportunity for Trump to honor a supporter of his who gave his life to go to a rally. Instead, he argued about whether his rallies were entertaining enough. Again, this is very basic stuff. I was frustrated last night because Kamala Harris is wrong on the border. She's wrong on crime. She's wrong on the economy. She's wrong on foreign affairs. She and Biden have failed. She's wrong on inflation. She's wrong on cost of goods. She doesn't have the right solutions for America. She and Biden have failed across the board. Trump had an opportunity to hold her accountable for all of the things that she's changed her opinion on, and I didn't think he did it. And just like when you have a game, it's American playbook, but just like when you have a game, your team doesn't always play well. I'm a fan of the Titans. They were awful at the quarterback position and on offense against the Bears. That doesn't mean I'm not a fan of the Titans. I pay season tickets. I'm a fan of the University of Tennessee. They were great. Political fans are less honest often than sports fans are. I try to be honest with you for both politics and sports and tell you exactly what I saw. When somebody's great, I'm going to tell you. When somebody's not great, I'm going to tell you that too. Trump wasn't great on Tuesday, last night. He needed to be, and he could have been, because Kamala is the worst candidate running for president in any of our lives, and she has the worst record. I think all that matters. Okay. Deshaun Watson. You know what? We've gone on for a while. I'll dive back into Deshaun Watson, Panthers, Taylor Swift, the impact, all of that I will talk about tomorrow because I got a bunch of shows still. I got to go give you my sports gambling picks. I'm about to sit down and write up my OutKick gambling picks for you for college football. Tomorrow, we'll be back with OutKick the show. I love all of you on YouTube that are consuming that show there in such massive numbers. Be with you on Clay and Buck. Kelly Stewart and I are going to do our sports gambling show tomorrow, The Fade. So we'll have a couple of more shows for you tomorrow. I'll have Clay and Buck. I appreciate all of your support for OutKick. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Thank you to everybody out there who has supported Tunnel to Towers, raising money for 9/11 survivors, as well as the survivors of military, police, first responders. Thank you for all the work that all of you guys do. I'll be back tomorrow. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. This has been OutKick the show.